You've seen it in Avatar. Humans walking around Pandora's lush forests, breathing through simple masks because the air is just a little too toxic. It looks like Earth, feels like Earth, but supposedly you'd die without that mask. The plants thrive, the equipment functions normally. The humans walk, talk, and move like they're on a pleasant hike. Everything about the environment says this place is almost identical to our planet, except for that mask. So, here's the question that should bother you. If the atmosphere is lethal enough to require constant protection, why does everything else look so normal? What does a truly lethal atmosphere actually do to an environment? And more importantly, what would it do to your body if you were actually standing there? The answer reveals one of science fiction's most persistent lies. We're going to break down why chemistry and physics make Pandora's breathable-looking toxic air a scientific impossibility. Avatar claims that Pandora's atmosphere contains high levels of carbon dioxide and xenon, making it toxic but otherwise normal-looking. Let's start with the carbon dioxide problem. At concentrations high enough to require immediate masking, CO2 doesn't just quietly poison you. It triggers a condition called hypercapnia, where excess carbon dioxide in your bloodstream causes your blood pH to drop. That's respiratory acidosis, and the symptoms are violent and immediate. We're talking about gasping for air, confusion, muscle twitching, and potential loss of consciousness within minutes. You wouldn't calmly walk through a forest. You'd be on the ground, convulsing. But here's what's weird. In Avatar, nobody's convulsing. Nobody's gasping. They're jogging through the forest like it's a pleasant hike. That tells us something important about the atmosphere's actual toxicity. The xenon claim is even more absurd. Xenon isn't a subtle toxin that slowly builds up in your system. It's an anesthetic gas used in surgical procedures. At the concentrations needed to make an atmosphere immediately lethal, xenon would knock you unconscious before it killed you. You wouldn't need a mask for xenon poisoning. You'd need someone to drag your unconscious body back to safety. The movie shows people walking, talking, and functioning normally with just a mask. That tells us the atmospheric difference can't be that severe. Here's the core issue that Hollywood always ignores. Any gas mixture lethal enough to require immediate, constant masking would cause instant, dramatic physiological symptoms. Your body is incredibly sensitive to atmospheric changes. Even a small increase in CO2 concentration triggers your respiratory drive. You start breathing faster, harder, trying to expel the excess. At truly dangerous levels, you can't ignore it. It's not like holding your breath. It's your body screaming at you that something is catastrophically wrong. But let's say we ignore the immediate physiological response and focus on the chemistry itself. Truly toxic atmospheres aren't just different in concentration. They're reactive. Chlorine gas doesn't just poison you when you breathe it. It reacts with moisture in your lungs, forming hydrochloric acid that dissolves tissue. Fluorine is even worse. It's so reactive that it will corrode metal, glass, and organic tissue on contact. High concentrations of methane displace oxygen entirely, but they also change how materials behave. Plastics degrade differently, metals oxidize at different rates, electronics fail. The Pandora we see in Avatar shows none of this. Look at the equipment the humans use. The AMP suits are exposed metal and hydraulics. The Samson helicopters have unprotected rotors and engine components. The breathing masks themselves have rubber tubing and plastic housings. If the atmosphere were truly chemically lethal, we'd see corrosion on those metal surfaces within hours. The rubber seals would degrade. The plastic components would crack and discolor. Electronic circuits exposed to reactive atmospheric chemistry would fail. None of that happens. The equipment functions perfectly, mission after mission, with no visible degradation. And then there's the exposed skin problem. Watch any scene where Jake Sully walks through Pandora's forest. His arms are bare. His face is exposed except for the mask. His skin shows no irritation, no chemical burns, no redness or blistering from contact with a chemically toxic atmosphere. If the air contained the concentrations of CO2 and xenon that Avatar claims, his exposed skin would react. High CO2 concentrations create carbonic acid when they contact moisture. Sweat on your skin would turn acidic. The result would be burning and irritation within minutes. We see none of that. Jake's skin looks like he's on a pleasant hike through an earth forest. That tells us the atmosphere can't be chemically that different from Earth's. If it were, we'd see corrosion on metal surfaces, degradation of synthetic materials, and visible reactions between the atmosphere and the environment. A chemically lethal atmosphere announces itself through more than just what happens when you breathe it. It changes everything it touches. But the chemistry is only half the lie. The physics makes it even more impossible. Here's what most people don't understand about atmospheres. You can't change the chemical composition without changing the physical properties. Pressure and density aren't independent variables you can adjust separately. They're inseparable from the gas mixture itself. Different gases have different molecular weights. Change the mix, and you change how heavy the air is. Change how heavy the air is, and you change the pressure at sea level. Pandora presents us with a paradox that violates basic physics. The movie shows us massive floating mountains held aloft by some kind of magnetic field interaction with unobtainium. Fine. But it also shows us an ecosystem with giant creatures, massive trees, and complex life forms that require substantial atmospheric density to function. Look at the Ikran, the flying creatures that Jake and other Na'vi ride. These animals have wingspans of maybe 10 meters, but they're carrying the weight of a full-grown Na'vi who stands 3 meters tall. For wings that size to generate enough lift to carry that weight, the air must be significantly denser than Earth's. Then there's the home tree, a structure hundreds of meters tall with a trunk diameter that suggests enormous mass. Trees that size need substantial atmospheric pressure to move water and nutrients from roots to canopy. The entire ecosystem implies an atmosphere significantly denser than Earth's. What does that density mean for humans? It means you're not just dealing with a different gas mix, you're dealing with fundamentally different pressure. Air dense enough to support Pandora's ecosystem would feel like breathing underwater. Every breath would require effort against the resistance of that thick atmosphere. Your chest would feel compressed. Your eardrums would register the pressure difference immediately. This isn't subtle. This is the difference between standing at sea level and diving 10 meters down. Your body knows instantly when pressure changes. The physiological effects of high atmospheric pressure are well documented. We see them in deep-sea divers and hyperbaric chamber patients. At pressures significantly higher than Earth's sea level, Nitrogen dissolves into your bloodstream and tissues. That's nitrogen narcosis, and it impairs cognitive function. You get dizzy, your judgment fails, your motor control deteriorates, and that's with Earth's normal gas mix. Add in the high CO2 and xenon that Avatar claims, and you're looking at immediate incapacitation. But let's say we accept that Pandora's atmosphere isn't denser. Let's say it's somehow the same pressure as Earth, despite supporting that massive ecosystem. We still have another problem. Different gas mixtures transfer heat differently. Thermal conductivity varies with molecular composition. An atmosphere with high xenon content would feel noticeably different on exposed skin because xenon conducts heat differently than nitrogen and oxygen. You'd feel colder or warmer depending on the specific mix. Your body would register that difference immediately. Look at real lethal atmospheres in our solar system. Venus has an atmosphere so dense and hot that the pressure at the surface is equivalent to being a kilometer underwater. The air itself would crush you before the heat killed you. Titan has a thick atmosphere of nitrogen and methane at temperatures cold enough to freeze methane into lakes. Mars has an atmosphere so thin it's essentially a vacuum. In every case, the lethality announces itself through pressure, temperature, and density, not through invisible chemistry that requires a mask to detect. If Pandora's atmosphere were truly lethal, like these real examples, what would we see in the movie? If it were like Venus, the pressure would crush equipment and make movement impossible. If it were like Titan, the cold would freeze everything and we'd see methane rain instead of water. If it were like Mars, the low pressure would cause exposed liquids to boil and full pressure suits would be mandatory. Instead, we see a lush forest with liquid water, comfortable temperatures, and humans jogging around in t-shirts and masks. The visual evidence contradicts the premise of a lethal atmosphere at every turn. Watch the scenes where humans operate outside their base. They're jogging through the forest, operating machinery, engaging in physical combat, all with nothing but a breathing mask, no pressure suit, no thermal protection, no sealed environment. If Pandora's atmosphere were truly lethal, this would be impossible. A simple mask can't protect you from pressure differentials, temperature extremes, or chemical reactivity on your skin. It can only filter gas. So, either the atmosphere isn't as lethal as the movie claims, or everyone on screen should be dead. If this contradiction bothers you as much as it bothers us, drop a comment. Tell us which part of Avatar's science breaks your brain the most: the equipment that never corrodes, or the pressure paradox. The humans move exactly as they would on Earth, which tells us the pressure must be nearly identical. Their exposed skin shows no reaction, which tells us the chemistry can't be that different. But if the pressure is identical and the gas mix is similar enough that exposed skin doesn't react, then what exactly makes the atmosphere lethal enough to require constant masking? An atmosphere can't be subtly toxic and immediately lethal at the same time. Physics doesn't allow it. Avatar wanted the visual drama of the mask without the inconvenience of actual science. But here's the question that should bother you now. If Avatar got Pandora's atmosphere this wrong, what else did they get wrong? The gravity? The biology of the Na'vi? The physics of those floating mountains? How many other blockbusters are built on scientific lies we don't even notice? Your brain already knew something was off about that atmosphere. You were right. Your instinct about physics was correct. If you've ever felt that something was off about Pandora's atmosphere, hit like. You were thinking like a physicist. If you want to catch every movie science debunk before Hollywood lies become canon, subscribe. New videos every week. We break down the physics that blockbusters get wrong. Next week, we're breaking down Avatar's claim about humanoid aliens evolving Earth-like bodies.